In this video, I'm going to show you how to run an independent sample t-test through SPSS data. As you can see, I have the SPSS data already pulled out, and I obtained this through the Youth Risk Behavioral Survey, High School, Guilford County Students, Public Health Statistics. In order to test this, my research question is there a difference in how often a high school student is involved in a physical fight based on sex? So before we move on to anything, we need to first identify what the independent and the dependent variable are, and if this question qualifies for an independent t-test. So here the independent variable is, I would say, a sex, because the sex cannot be changed with any factor or in whatever form the question is formed. And then the level of measurement is nominal, because sex is either a male or a female. It doesn't have any specific value and cannot be put in order. And the dependent variable is a variable that is dependent on the independent variable and can change according to the independent variable. And so here it is the number of times a physical fight a student is involved in. And the level of measurement is ratio, because the value can range from 0 to 100, and 0 having a real value. Therefore, now that we have identified an independent variable and a dependent variable, we can run the independent sample t-test. Before we run the independent sample t-test, we need to look at the coding of the independent variable. Here we can see that 1 is for female and 2 is for male. It is very important that we recognize the coding, because it can be 0 for female and 1 for male. So now that we know that is 1 and 2 for female and male, we can hit OK and run the test. For that, we click Analyze, Compare Means, and Independent Sample t-test. And I'm going to move this back. So the test variable is the dependent variable. And in this case, the dependent variable is how many times were you involved in a physical fight, which is question 18. So I'm going to put that here. And then the grouping variable is the independent variable, which is the sex here. So as you can see, there are 2 question marks here, and I'm not able to press OK. And this is because I have to define the groups. Since we had already checked what the groups are, I can tell that group 1 is 1. Usually this is blank, and so I will click 1 for female and 2 for male and hit continue. Now that I've identified the groups, I'm able to hit OK and run the data. So when I run the data, this is the information that I obtain. As you can see, the number of females is 1,254 and number of males is 1,079. But this table is very important for us in order to identify the differences in between male and female as per our question. There is a null hypothesis and a research hypothesis. A null hypothesis tells us that there is no difference in sexes for how many times a student was involved in a physical fight. A research question shows that there is a difference. So before we begin, we look at the Levine's test for equality of variance. In that, we test it through the significance, which is basically the p-value. If the p-value here, since the p-value here is 0.000, which is smaller than 0.05, we can tell that equal variances cannot be assumed. So we look at the bottom row. And looking at the bottom row, this is what we look at. And then we move on to the significance 2 tails, which again is 0.000, which tells us that, which is smaller than 0.05, and tells us that there is a significant difference. And we can also look at through the confidence interval. Here we can see that both these values are negative, and so it doesn't cross 0. If the values don't cross 0, it means that it's significantly different. And therefore we can reject the null hypothesis that states that there is no difference, and accept our research question that there is a difference. And so now we move on to looking at the mean and see which one is larger. Here we can see that the male is larger than the female, with a mean of 1.73 versus 1.37. Therefore we can assume that there is a difference in the sexes on how many times a student is involved in physical fight, and say that male is more likely to be involved in physical fight more than female. And therefore this is how we tested our independent sample t-test.